Hola and welcome to another session of character modeling. This session will be taking this high-res ZBrush model and turning it into a game model. Now by that what I mean is something that will render in real time in Unreal or Unity or even on the web. And for my purposes I wanted him to render on the web using Marmoset's view file format. Just like the production world, I needed to get this project finished in a hurry. So we'll also be covering some shortcuts I used to get it done. Now, you can check out the model rendering in real time on my ArtStation page. I'll leave a link in the description below. And let's not mess about. Let's talk about the first major shortcut, which is the bump detail on the skin. Now, even though I was going for a reasonably realistic character, I did not bother applying bump details with a high resolution sculpt. Since I'm using Substance Painter to create the textures and materials, the first thing I did was go to the Substance Painter library and downloaded a bunch of skin bumps. And I'll show you how I blended those together in a little bit. The Substance Painter skin materials are useful for the bump detail, but I needed a better solution for the color map. For this, I turned to Vertex Paint and ZBrush. Now I blocked in the overall color and then used the scatter brush, which randomizes the color a little. As you can see, I've worked out my palette and mapped it to a plane in the background so I can easily sample the colors. Now to get my palette, I used reference photos and blurred them a little just to abbreviate the colors and make it easier to sample. We'll finish up the skin in a bit, but first I need to retopologize the model so it is light enough to render in real time. Since my model would not be animated, I could cheat a little on the retopology. So, I used ZBrush in combination with the Curves Guide brush to retopologize the face and torso. I cleaned up the orbits of the face in Maya using the modeling tools so I could snap to the high-res model and added a little extra detail that was missing in these crucial areas. For the shirt, I just decimated the high-res model. I did the same for my guide here. Even though I'm using hair cards, the sculpted hair helps to see the overall look as you're working. For the shirt and guide here, I just use ZBrush's UV master to get the initial unwrap and fix the layout in Maya. UVs for the face and body were also applied in Maya. Now before baking the model, it's useful to apply some color IDs. This makes generating masks for the various materials super easy. So, back in ZBrush, I flooded the various parts with vertex color, depending on where I wanted different materials. On to Substance Painter. Now we're ready to bake the high-res detail onto our final model. In addition to the regular normal AO world space curvature and position maps, we'll also want a thickness map for the subsurface scatter effect on the skin, and for the vertex color we'll bake an ID map. By default, this channel is set to material color, so be sure to change that to vertex color to bake out the vertex color from the model. And voila! Here is our baked model ready for texturing. We'll start with the base. Since I wanted the text to pop, I used the color IDs to pick out the gold lettering. And this is a lot easier than trying to paint a mask. You just right-click on the material you want to mask and choose Add a Black Mask. Now you right-click on the mask and choose Add Color Selection. Then from the Properties window you can use the color picker to choose the color ID you want, in this case the text. Back to the skin. I took the baked vertex color from ZBrush and applied it as a diffuse color and set some base level metal and rough values. As a rule, I keep the metal values at 0 unless the surface is metal or I'm looking for a kind of a special effect. Next, I added a layer of flat skin color and turned down the opacity so it wasn't so noisy. I also added some paint layers for details like the inside of the eyes and the lips. These are kept as masks so I can simultaneously tune the rough settings to make the eyes and lips wetter. And you probably noticed in these shots I already have a material on the shirt, so I jump around a lot when I'm building characters, but to keep things kind of logical for the presentation I'm editing things. I hope that's cool. Now it's time to use all those skin materials we downloaded. I started by applying an overall bump and turned off the material's color channel, so the color we painted is used instead. Next, I proceeded to apply various skin bumps, utilizing masks to control where the different bumps show up. And at the end of the day, I just subtracted those masks from the overall bump, so they're not doubling up. Okay, so what we have here is I've got kind of the male 30-year-old forehead skin bump selected I got from the Substance library. I've got just the regular alpha channel right now, nothing fancy there. I've turned the spacing right down. I'm going to use my mouse instead of my stylus. So I've turned the spacing on the brush right down, and I've also turned angle jitter up since I'm going to be stamping it. And then finally, at the moment, I've got my opacity set to 100%, but you can also tune that a little bit. But here we go. So now you can probably see the bump details kicking in. You can see it looks a little bit lumpy, like it actually feels like it's kind of swollen in those areas, but don't worry, I'll fix that in a minute. So I'll kind of go dial my brush down. You can see, yeah, definitely see where, and I'm going to actually exaggerate that so you can see kind of, it does create a bit of a distortion, but we can fix that easy enough. And it's the same deal if you're painting bumps in ZBrush, same problem, right? So there we go. So we've got a bump, but we've got a bit of a kind of rough distortion around the edges. So I will simply add a filter, a blur filter, and dial that up to, there you go. So the blur just kind of really softens the transition from where the bump is to where it isn't. And Bob's your auntie. So we'll just proceed to paint various masks for our different skin color, different skin bumps. And once I'm done, I basically subtract all those masks from the base bump, so there's no doubling up, and we're good to go. I added just a layer for the rough channel to make some areas such as the forehead a little shinier, greasier. For the shirt, I applied the denim fabric material and used a generator to add wear to the edges. I just used the fiberglass edge wear generator, which isn't exactly cloth wear, but I think it worked. I did a quick paint job on the guide here in ZBrush and also baked out the color in Substance. Then I added an alpha channel to the hairline of the guide here to blend the hairline with the skin. This is just for visualization purposes, definitely helps me. I really cheated for the eyebrows. I could have made cards, but in order to expedite things, I just extracted some geometry from the brow of the face and offset it a little, then applied UVs and using an alpha channel in Substance, painted the eyebrows. A combination of blur and layers of geo worked well enough. Using the guide here as a guide, I painted some false shadows for the hairline. This will be used for the final product. Now, the transition from the torso into the base looked a bit abrupt to me, so I tried to tone it down with some artistic flourishes. I introduced some of the base material into the bottom of the shirt and arms to soften the transition. I'm not sure if it worked or not. Let me know what you think in the comments. That is all I have time for this session, but I will be following up with a final video on the hair and setting up the marmoset view file for the final product. Thanks for the comments on the last video, but I'm a little embarrassed to admit I was on my wife's computer when I saw those and replied as her. Sorry about that. Anyway, next session I'll go into a little more detail on the hair, and I do have some stuff I want to share about my experience with marmoset, particularly getting good skin for the marmoset view file. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and please like, subscribe, and happy modeling.